Feeling stuck inside, needing to rock? Feed your soul at the air drum party.
You know you're an air drummer. Come out of the closet. I did.
I find myself sitting there and air drumming along to all my favorite records.
Totally relates to the air drumming thing. I would make these wonderful drum sets out of magazines and then beat the covers up.
Right now, Adventures of Power, the cult movie about air drumming, is teaming up to raise money for musicians in need and to rock your pants off.
Music is not about having arms. Music is about having spirit.
With a free online watch party where you can chat with the cast, comedians, and celebrity drummers. Who knows who might stop by? Save the world. Feel the rock. Be the power. Come to airdrummer.com.
We want to see you
rock.
You can do it.
Do it! Do it! Come on! Do it now!
And gentlemen who are here early, just so you know, we have a little bit, California has a little bit of the power outage situation that Texas had recently. And so our live stream on multiple channels is going to be postponed for a week. But those of us on Instagram were able to do this on our phones. So we thought we would say hi.
Well, without power. Yeah, that was the story of Texas a little over a week ago. We were okay here, but it felt like the sword of Damocles was over our heads at any moment. It could be lights out.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It looks like you got power there.
We have power here, and because I play the character of Power in Adventures of Power, I always have power.
You're never without.
Never without. Well, we'll talk for 5 minutes because we're here, right?
I'm here. I got a bottle of water. You know, what else we're going to do? We're going to have a party. Now we're going to have a mini party.
I have a piece of the costume from Adventures of Power. I have my Adventures of Power headband somewhere here. I'm ARI GOLD, for those of you who don't know. I'm on the Modern Drummer Instagram, but normally I'm high back. I am in the Guinness World Records for air drumming, and I made the movie Adventures of Power, which Neil Peart was in. And when we released the film, I also punked Todd by going to a drum, I think it was a NAMM performance or something, and I went on stage and performed as Power air drumming.
Can you guess what year that was?
2009?
2006.
No.
Pretty sure. I'm like 99% sure this was 2006.
It's possible, because I was playing that character for a while before I even had made the movie. So
and that was the Hollywood drum show, the Hollywood Vintage Drum Show.
It was.
And yeah, because I had moved from LA to Austin in December of 2005. So it was still kind of weird, like, hey, I don't live here anymore, you know, at that time for me.
And then some weird guy in a orange jumpsuit is air drumming on stage when you're supposed to be playing.
You did a Blue Collar Man, I think it was, right?
I did, yes. I did Blue Collar Man because, you know, my character in the movie works in a copper mine. It seemed appropriate. But yeah, you know, maybe we can do the one question. Yeah, In the Air Tonight. Yes, people have seen the movie. So the question that I was asking you before we got on the phone now, when we will do the one question, then we'll come back in 1 week to do like a more in-depth chat that also is on YouTube and all the other places. Tech problems for those who are just showing up. Perhaps you could tell these lovely people about your experience with Spinal Tap, because we, as you said, we share a colleague in Michael McKean, who's in Adventures of Power and is in Spinal Tap. So what was your Spinal Tap experience?
Well, I mean, for me, those guys are obviously, they're a firing squad of comedy, yet they don't laugh a lot. Like, they make each other, they say the funniest things, and, you know, like Christopher Guest will go, you know, like that's him laughing. And Michael was sort of like that, but they all want to play. They all can play, and they all want to be great. And they were all just lovely people. Yeah, the first time I worked with them was just over 20 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
just wonderful people. They actually care. They want to play and sing as well as they can. And it's funny. I hadn't had any communication with Michael since around 2009, the last time I played with him. But I thought that he was so amazing in Better Call Saul. It was, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago. I thought, you know what? He was unbelievable. I couldn't believe he wasn't showered with Golden Globes and Emmys and stuff. I thought his performance was as good as anything anyone's ever done on the screen. And I wrote him an email, and I went and played the show. It came back, and he sent me a lovely email back like that. So yeah, lovely guy.
Yeah, I tease him occasionally on Twitter. That's where our relationship is right now.
Well, hey, real quick.
There was something someone had posted, like, who's the most handsome man who's ever been on screen, and I posted one of my photos of him from Adventures of Power, and he wrote back and said, "Good boy," because I play his son, so it seemed appropriate.
Hey,
but
can I geek out on one drum thing real quick? Because you mentioned In the Air tonight.
Yeah.
I have something very special here. Although I am a Pearl drum endorser, I do have this, what I call the Cantaloupe Monstrosity back there. Those are 1978 premieres, which that is the exact same era drums that Phil Collins recorded In the Air tonight. A lot of people think it's Gretsch because he's been Gretsch since '83. He was premiere 1975 through 1982. So all those records,
wow.
Lamb Lays Down on Broadway through Abacab, those were.
And when he was playing for Peter Gabriel in Peter Gabriel 3, which is kind of where I think the sound that he used on the In the Air tonight was developed by playing on Peter Gabriel's record, when they were like, let's try our whole record with no cymbals. No hi-hat, no crash, nothing. And then did it himself.
Jerry Marotta played most of that record. I think Phil played 2 songs on that. I think he played No Self-Control and Intruder. And I believe they stumbled upon the backwards or the gated reverb thing by mistake. Hugh Padgham was a producer, and he was just kind of hitting buttons, and all of a sudden they were getting sounds, and they thought, what's that? So happy accident.
With Phil playing or with Jerry Marotta playing?
It depends on who you ask.
Yeah. Yeah, not bad. So by the way, Tony just texted from Modern Drummer, just texted me and was like, maybe you guys just keep going. Should we just roll it and then we'll?
I'm happy to talk. Like I said, I got a bottle of water.
Got a bottle of water. That's rock and roll lifestyle, man.
But the bar's in the house. I keep this.
So you're you live in Texas. Do you have do you have horses? What's a drummer's life when he's in Texas?
I don't have a cowboy hat. I don't have horses. I have a cat and a daughter, and that's enough for now. But yeah, I moved. My wife and I moved to Austin 15 years ago, seeking a better life.
Until weeks ago, and then it was like maybe not.
Yeah, until 3 weeks ago, until they decided that there's no power in the state of Texas. It doesn't matter that it's 114 degrees here for 90 days in a row, and everyone's cranking their air conditioners. There's plenty of power then, but it did the temperature to 9, and it seems to make the power go like that. Who knows?
Yeah, well, everything froze. The pipes froze and the gas lines, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically take Miami, cover it with hockey arena ice, then dump snow on it for about 5 days and make it 9 degrees for about 10 days and see how that works.
Yeah, sexy stuff.
Good times.
Yeah. So you're Texas now. You were raised in Chicago, right?
Correct.
And your father was like a big band drummer. Is that right?
Yeah,
like
my dad. Yeah.
Style?
Sorry.
Did he play like Buddy Rich style? Or?
My dad was more. He was more of a groover. Like if you're hip to like Davey Tough, he was like a quarter note pulse swing guy. He wasn't like a technician like Buddy or a showman like Krupa. He was kind of like a pocket player. He had the sweetest press roll I've ever heard anybody do. But yeah, he put himself through medical school playing drums. And boy, I think he started college in like 38 or 39. So my dad was 50 when I was born. So yeah, he put himself through med school playing drums, and then he sort of had a dual life where he had a practice in the day, and for I think close to 19 years, he was one of the house drummers at the Chez Paris in Chicago, which was like the Cotton Club. And that's where all the big, you know, like Sammy Davis Jr. or Liberace or Joy Lewis or Sophie Tucker and all these like old time, Senor Wences, you know, all sorts of crazy stuff went down there. And he was one of the rotating guys in the house band there for nearly 20 years. And, you know, he passed away when I was 22. And one of the questions I wish I could ask him is, how did you do that and survive on so little sleep for so long?
Yeah. What do you think? Carrot juice?
Probably. I mean, there wasn't, it wasn't the 80s, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It was the 50s. There was sort of a different things going on back then.
Right. Yeah, I also, I know eventually we could talk about Styx or no Styx. No, someone asked me what kind of air drumsticks I used. There's also the Styx with the River Styx band that you're in, which we could talk about. But I also want to know about you playing with Brian Wilson.
Okay. What do you want to know?
Well, I mean, he is, you know, he seems to have descended from upon high onto the planet to write songs. But I would imagine that playing with him, working with him, you know, you're dealing with a guy who's got his ups and downs, and I don't know what you feel comfortable saying, but what was it like?
No, I mean, the incredible thing about Brian is, you know, once you try to, you know, initially I was very intimidated because here is a individual who is also known for, you know, peculiar behavior or being eccentric or whatnot. But he changed the face of 20th century music and sort of almost single-handedly was the architect of the quintessential California dream. So that is a pretty heavy thing. But you just realize he's just kind of he's just a guy. He's like a Saint Bernard. He wants to clown around and have some fun if he's feeling, yeah, there you go.
I started surfing. Why did you guys started surfing?
You know,
sorry, I just had to point out the surfboard because
no. But the funny thing about Brian is he really does hear everything, and you know, I've just seen him, like, you know, the band's rehearsing and hey Brian, what's the trumpet part? The first note of California Girls, C flat. Like that, you know, and it's a weird note. If you ever listen to the beginning, or there's a really weird low trumpet note that doesn't sound like it belongs in the chord, but it's one of those things that makes that what it is. And when you hear a band that doesn't quite get all the chords, you hear something and it's not right, kind of makes your teeth rattle a little bit. He has notes and things in there that are extraordinarily complex that very few people can figure out the right voicings for stuff. But he hears everything. I once saw him write an original piece, and he had the whole band around, and he doled out parts 4 bars at a time, starting from the low vocals all the way up to the high vocals. And it started out like it's a weird Jackson Pollock painting or something, and then all of a sudden he starts adding the high notes, and there's the sun poking out from the clouds. It's
wow,
absolutely extraordinary.
Wow. So, and he ended up singing for on a record for you and your wife. Did I imagine that? No.
When Taylor Mills, my wife, when I produced her first record, this was back in 2007. We got Brian to kind of lend his harmonies in a vocal blend, and then I got Tommy Shaw to help out on one song. So we each sort of got our big boss man to come in and give us a hand with the record, which was a thrill.
I mean, to have Brian Wilson like just lay a little harmony onto your record that's
Well, dig this. You know, do you know Our Prayer from Smile? You know that piece of music?
I don't, you know, I've Smile. I never gave enough.
Okay, that's Smile's a whole universe of.
I know, and there are people who like. I feel like they become psychotic when they go into the Smile and the Smiley Smile and.
Well,
you know.
check a good place to start with that actually and work your way back is check out the DVD Brian Wilson California Dreamer. There's a great documentary that's lovingly done about Smile, and then the second disc is it was his current band at that time in 2004 playing Smile live. That's a great place to start because you can see like there's the triangle hit, there's an oboe that comes in. It was really filmed well, so that's a good place to start and go back. But we had Brian and his band, it's just an a cappella, like a Bach chorale, start our wedding, having Brian Wilson and the band sing Our Prayer to begin our wedding ceremonies. Friggin', couldn't imagine that when I was in high school.
Yeah. Pretty good. Pretty good.
Not bad.
Well, how do you, so you said what do you play now?
The drums?
Yeah. Do you say Pearl? No,
Oh,
I mean,
Pearl, the actual drums.
Yes, I do know that.
I just had my 21st anniversary of Pearl.
I play DW air drums. If you look at Adventures of Power, there's one scene with a stool that Power sits in. Normally he doesn't use a stool, but it is a DW stool.
Not even acrylics, just.
But no, sorry, I talked over you. What did you say?
No, I was talking about. I just had my 21st anniversary with Pearl drums.
Nice.
So and they're about to have their 75th anniversary next month.
Oh, okay.
So there's gonna be some online Pearl partying happening before too long.
Good. And so, who has been your biggest influence other than, I suppose, your father? And I'd love to hear if you want to share anything about how your father.
Sure. I mean,
too. Like, how did your style form?
My father was a big band jazz drummer. My mother was an actress who could also play a bit of piano and sing. And I was the youngest of three. My older brother Paul gravitated to piano when he was a kid. It was clear that I was going to be a drummer from the time I was a baby. And the middle brother Joel said, well, I'm going to play bass. So I grew up playing with my brothers as a rhythm section under the tutelage of our dad. We also grew up in the era of rock. So there was that. And the cool thing about being the baby in that situation is my brothers would meet older musicians, and my dad knew some people. So there's always music playing in the house, whether it was Led Zeppelin or Count Basie or Kiss or Aerosmith or Parliament Funkadelic or Miles Davis. Like, it didn't matter. There was always music playing, and then those guys would work with older musicians and befriend older musicians. So that opened up a whole other world of influences. My brother's coming home with records, and I have very vivid images of like my brother Joel coming home with Genesis Seconds Out. What's that? You see the album cover, let's put it on. It was a great way to grow up like that. And we had instruments and stereos in every room. So like, I'd go to a friend's house and I'd look around and go, where the hell are your instruments? Like, how can you live like this? What's the matter with you people?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, this is something that I really connected with Neil Peart about, was music education. And we, actually, you donated a drum to our fundraiser. We reopened a music program in Jersey City at a public school, and we raised enough money to completely, the program had been terminated. And we were able to reopen it. And, the idea that there are kids growing up without playing music, to those who play music, does seem insane.
it's hard to fathom, and being the lucky recipient of a great junior high and high school music programs and band directors, I can't imagine not having that.
Yeah.
It's as important as everything. It's math, it's science. There's been studies that kids can excel, as their brains are formulating by playing music, and I don't understand that. And I saw a great meme where, if you want this, and there's a beautiful symphony hall with candelabras, and you have to have this, and there's a picture of a classroom with kids with violins. It's as simple as that. If you want that down the road, well,
Yeah.
It's pretty simple when you talk it through like that.
Yeah, I always think about people who, older generation people who complain about hip hop and rap music, and then they don't look at the fact that our country has stopped supporting music education for kids, so no one knows how to play instruments, so they do what they can, they make up words. But I don't think it's a coincidence that hip hop formed, or the early guys doing hip hop in the 70s in New York, they formed like 3 years after the music programs were cut from the schools in New York City. So kids who were learning trumpet and all the drums, all these other instruments, they had no outlet for their musical kind of drive because they had no education, and then they started rapping.
I had a bit of a Grammy rant. I try to keep my socials positive and educational and whatnot. But when I saw the Grammys a year ago, I posted in 1986. I said, "Hey, remember that time when Buddy Rich played with Tony Williams and played with Stanley Clarke and Freddie Hubbard?" And like, yeah, I remember, because that's what they used to televise at the Grammys. And there's this whole performance of all these jazz greats. And where the Grammys have gone now, though they've been great supporters of MCKEAN, I don't want to dump on them, but it's a spectacle show now. It's not an awards. When I was a kid, I used to like to see in the best recorded classical, and there's some guy from Austria coming down and accepting his award. He was the best engineer. Now all those are given earlier in the evening, and it may as well be solid gold or it's a big award show, because let's face it, the Pepsi and whatnot, they'll pay big money for that. But I said, there's not one thing I saw last night that would make a kid want to pick up a trumpet or a trombone or a violin or anything. Oh, you might want to be a dancer or a celebrity, a star, but not a musician. And music's biggest night, that really got to me. And my post was shared by like Stanley Clarke and all these people saw this post, and it made me feel good, because those guys, they got the chance to be on TV. So that is something that is denied to the musicians now and the viewers now. I saw Al Jarreau singing Blue Rondo a la Turk with Art Pepper. Who's Art Pepper? Well, I know who he is because I saw it. Mm-hmm. All these things I got to see when music was televised. So I think that's part of it too. Why is a kid going to pick up an oboe if he never gets to see one?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go dark.
No. I mean, it's true, and the whole culture has. I mean, we could have. We could have a big discussion about what's happening in the culture. Let's pivot. Let's pivot to Styx, not drumsticks, not my air drumsticks, but Styx with a Y in the middle. How did you want to tell a little bit about how you ended up?
Sure. Well, that came about from my good fortune of breaking in and breaking through the recording studio scene in Chicago in the early 90s. And this would have been March of 1995. The guy who ran the cartage company that dealt with all the musicians, meaning he and his crew, if you had a session, they were the ones that would come to your house, grab your gear, take it down to the studio, set it up, you go in, you play, sign a form, get paid, they tear it down, bring it back to your house. It's awesome. So he had worked, Keith Marks, his name, he had worked with the band in the past. He'd worked with a couple of guys on their solo projects. And in 95, A&M was going to release Styx's greatest hits. Their first hit, Lady, was on Wooden Nickel Records. And apparently there was some issue about getting the sound rights recordings from the blah, 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 blah. So they decided, well, let's re-record it. And at that time, John Panazzo, Styx's original drummer, was in ill health and kind of couldn't physically play the drums. So they called Keith and they said, who should we get to ghost drum on the session? And Keith said, oh, you got to call Todd. And I also saw them in 81 and 83 and, you know, was in bands with my brothers playing, you know, a bunch of the songs. So being from Chicago, they were a Chicago band. They were on the radio all the time. It was definitely in my musical DNA, as well as, you know, a million other bands and kinds of music and whatnot. So that was it. I just went in and recorded that track, and it was sort of, I was in and out of there in 90 minutes. Nice to meet you guys, and left. But they phoned me back in February of 96 to do another song, and this time was definitely a much more get to know you. You know, they're asking me questions, and not that they weren't nice before, but I could definitely tell something was brewing, and they were sizing me up as a guy, because when you're on the road, there's 22 hours that you might be together traveling, or hotels or restaurants where you're not on stage. So they were sizing me up as a person to see.
Like each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
A fan is asking, have you ever had a chance to collaborate with Thomas Lang?
No, but I've met Thomas a few times, but we've never done anything together.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, inspirational drummers. I kind of want to get back to it because your technique is, I mean, I don't know how many. I don't know who's better than you on the planet. Your technique.
There's plenty. There's plenty.
Okay, so who? Yeah, exactly. Now I provoked you. Who are your heroes? Living.
You know, I literally have a list that I have, you know, like a cut and paste when someone says who are your favorites, and I just cut and paste like 150 names, and I go, because it's true. But if I were to pick like the Holy Trinity, it'd be Tony Williams, Steve Smith, and Vinnie Colaiuta. But then I go, well, how can I, you know, keep not add Steve Gadd or Peter Erskine or Simon Phillips,
Dr. Gadd.
You know what I mean? And in each name, there's, you know, I can go down to Roy Haynes, Jack DeJohnette, or I can go, you know, Neil Bonham, Keith Moon. You know, there's it starts to be like this musical tree of you know, some of the English guys like Mark Brzezicki, Mel Gaynor, Phil Gould, Gary Husband, you know, Phil Collins.
Ginger.
I can go on and on and on. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Ginger.
I was never a ginger guy.
Too crazy.
It just it didn't speak to me. So that's simple.
He never really spoke to me either. Watching him, sometimes I'll like watch some videos on YouTube. Just like, I find like listening to crazy drumming before I go to bed is like the best head massage. You know, it cleans out whatever's in your day that you would need to get rid of, so you don't have bad dreams. But so I'll watch some Ginger Baker and I feel a massage, but musically I never got super turned on by him the way I deal with other guys. But you know,
yeah, you know, it's just one of those things, like and sometimes you just miss something, you know what I mean, like and then when you go back, it's like it's a historical homework. It's an archival thing that it becomes a history lesson, as opposed to truly having it mean something and touch me. So it's hard sometimes doing that, you know, some sort of Jurassic dig to find out something. Sometimes it can be fun, sometimes it can be thrilling, and it does hit you, and then sometimes you go, it just doesn't do it for me. It's not my flavor. So
yeah,
simple as that.
Yeah, so what's going on with Styx right now?
Well, You know, nothing is insofar as us doing any shows, of course, obviously, but we did record what will eventually be the next Styx record. So I did that right here. And with the technology today, my engineer, J.R. Taylor, was able to run my studio rig with a program called Audio Movers Listen To. And then Tommy Shaw and Will Evankovich, who's producing the record, they could listen with a private invite link in full high-resolution audio in their studios. And then we got on a Zoom call. And if it was, how about a different fill going into the second chorus? Like, okay, punch me in, boom. And we did 17 tracks in 3 days here like that. And I was wildly prepared for it because I was supposed to record the record in April in Nashville.
17 tracks in 3 days, you were really prepared.
Yeah. I'd been prepared a couple months before, and then COVID came, and it was like, what the hell are we going to do?
Were you changing tunings and changing positions based on the song, or was everything kind of locked down in terms of your kit?
Everything was locked down. I would change snare drums for that. That would be really the flavor change. I may have changed hi-hats on one or two things, but I kind of wanted this where the Mission, I had kind of switched a lot of cymbals. I switched snares. I used the same kit. I wanted to have it a little bit more a band thing. Like if you called me to do your record, one of the questions I'd ask you would be, do you want me to find different sounds for what I think is each song, or do you want like a uniform band sound? You know, like you listen to Synchronicity by the Police, like that's the same snare drum all the way through, and that has a uniform thing. You know, think how different Every Breath You Take would have been with a big, deep snare drum, you know? But it could have worked. Song that good. So that's where we're at with the Styx thing, and it doesn't make sense for this particular band to put out the record until we're able to go out and play, because we promote the records much better in a situation where we're out playing them than just putting it out there. And you know, it's not, let's face it, it's not 1981 where it's just everyone goes crazy. There has to be, people have to hear it and go, you know what, the new Styx stuff is friggin' great, and then they buy the record.
So during lockdown, have you been playing every day? I mean, do you feel, do you actually practice? I mean, this is a good question for all the drummers out there. Like, does Todd practice? Does he still practice? Yes,
as a matter of fact, I've probably had more time to practice because I've been at home as opposed to being on the road. You know, there's only so much you can get done on a hotel bed or on a practice pad, or, you know, the little practice pad in the dressing room. And I'm not one that goes out for like sound check and blows on the drums, because our crews had a hard day. The last thing they need is just you have some guy, you know, wanking on the drums. So for here, it's been great because I've had more time to do that. At the same time, I've been very, very fortunate that I've had a bunch of sessions and a bunch of records where I've had to prepare the music ahead of time. So it's been artistically a very fertile time for me to be able to roll up my sleeves and record a couple records that, you know, a couple progressive rock things, you know, 7-9 minute songs, things that I really want to compose and play the best that I can, as opposed to just improvising and going, is that cool? You know what I mean? So it's been a very fertile time in that regard.
Do you think I mean, what are you proudest of that you've created in the last year?
Boy, a bunch of things. I did my own record last year that came out in May. The new Styx record is really excellent and has progressive rock leanings. I just finished this record. This guy.
I mean, that term can mean different things to different people. Like, what? Put it in the camp of with some other bands or records from.
Which one?
Progressive rock. I mean, I hear that term, and obviously to some people that means only stuff that was like in the mid '70s, that where there's 17-minute songs, and other people are like, oh, Queensryche, or you know, like, what does progressive mean to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, you know, like Yes, Genesis.
But like until 1978, like, you know, what's the cutoff?
Yeah, no, that's
Yes,
a hard one.
Trevor Horn-ized, and
You're making me think, Ari.
I'm a film director.
No, I mean, really, if you talk about songs that have some time signature changes, some different sections where all of a sudden something will come in, you know, something that's not the 3 minutes and 25-second, you know, verse, chorus, bridge, guitar solo, out,
right?
Type of thing. So, you know, there's some really cool keyboard stuff. I mean, Lawrence Gowan is a friggin', you know, monster player. He studied classical at the Toronto Conservatory. So I mean, his facility on the instrument is ridiculous. So yeah, there's some really cool things on the record that it leans more in that direction than, you know, like Bon Jovi rock chorus, like hit sounding thing straight out of the gates. So yeah, okay. So someone's asking me, what films have I directed? Unless they're asking you. Maybe they're asking, I think they're asking me. Yeah, I made a movie called Adventures of Power, which is about air drummers. It's a comedy. Michael McKean from Spinal Tap plays my father in it, a union organizer, and someone who Todd has also worked with. Some of you who've been here since the beginning have heard that, but and I made a movie called The Song of Sway Lake, and I have a TV show that I'm pitching right now, a not independent thing. I'm moving out of this indie world into Hollywood and surfing in the meanwhile to keep myself from killing people. Yeah, so that's enough about me. So you started drumming at like when you were like 4, right? I was 2 actually, but by the time I was 4, I was playing. I was playing this kit, right?
You were doing timpani with the Chicago Symphony.
I was playing this kit right here. Well, this one, Slingerland with an 18-inch bass drum. That was my father's last kit, my first. But I was playing time by the time I was 4, and I did my first paying gig with my brothers when I was 6.
That's that does go part of the way to explaining your level of prowess. I mean, I talked to Lars Ulrich, who said he was air drumming for years before he got a drum set, and Neil Peart as well was playing pillows. He told me that he was playing pillows for like a year before he got a drum set. He had to prove to his father that he was serious, so he played those pillows.
Well, you know, Ari, that's the plight of so many drummers. I have a show on Drumeo. I do a streaming thing I do every Wednesday. And last show I was talking about how at some point we all fell in love with this, whether you saw Ringo on the Ed Sullivan Show, or you saw a 4th of July parade, or you saw, you know, your cousin had a drum kit in the basement, whatever it was, whatever you came to this, you saw this and you thought, that looks like fun. I want to do that. And then the journey begins. Like, you got to convince your parents, or you got to get a paper route to pay for stuff. And then your dad might go, well, you get a practice pad for a year. And if you know, everyone has their own journey to how they got to
anything
actual drum set.
Than the sound of those old practice pads. Pop, 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 pop. They were horrible. At least now they have those like flatter rubber ones that are quieter.
It's amazing a whole generation didn't end up with a carpal tunnel and tennis elbow in those things.
You know that sound. They were just awful sounding.
But I got to tell you, man, like, there's a thing about air drumming, and I mean, I'll tell you, you know, I was fortunate that I had drums, but point of the evening, it was too late to play, or something else was going on, or maybe one of my brothers had a cold and he went to bed early. So I would play drums on my bed. That was one option. And then another thing was you close your eyes, and I would learn kind of playing along with records, or even into my 20s, back when I would, well, when you're 21 and you might partake in some things that you do when you're 21 and you're up till 5 o'clock in the morning and you're by yourself and you're just playing music. And
that is cigarette. I know what you mean. You had a cigarette.
But you just go back and forth on the tape deck and just air drum to that part. What the hell is that? It's a tool to learn when you can't sit at the drums.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that.
I mean, as the only person in the Guinness Book for air drumming, this is my claim to fame in life. I will say that air drumming, like, you can't mess up, you can't fake it. And so when I learned to air drum a song, and there's also an athletic element of air drumming where you essentially have to have the strength to do each beat in double time, because you can't, there's no rebound. So you're going down and then up. And so if I drum a song, a hard song, I'm not a great drummer, but if I drum a hard song and I get through it, I'm fine. If I air drum that song and get through it, I got to lie on my back for 10 minutes. I'm exhausted. So and I think it burns into your brain when you air drum or play on pillow or whatever, because you're imagining that drum set around you and you don't have it. And so,
Yeah. And while you might experience a sensation of weightlessness, you do have to, it's a there and back. Though I don't rely on rebound from the drums, I gauge the rebound, because a snare drum is going to give me more love than a 18-inch floor tom, and a 20-inch crash is going to feel different than a 10-inch. You know what I mean? Each instrument on your drum set has a different feel and response.
Which drum gives you the least love?
The gong drum, the 20-inch gong drum. Here, I'll take you back to the gong drum, because that's a 20-inch head. It's not tensioned and taut like a snare drum.
Well, that's love like a pillow. You can just lie down on it and in it.
Yes, you could take a nap. You could just lie down and really,
Yeah.
Wake me up in 20. So yeah, it's I got a 22-inch crash over there. That's going to feel different than a 17-inch crash. The response. But I know what you mean. It's all you when you got nothing.
Yeah. I got a couple people have asked if you ever did anything with Jeff Porcaro.
I never met Jeff. No. A lot of mutual friends, but I never got to see him play live. I never met him. I just read the Robin Flans book, finished that a couple months ago, and went down a ridiculous Jeff listening rabbit hole. And what's funny, and I don't know if it's, you get to be a certain age, but there are also certain things that I didn't like when I was a kid that I hear them now, and I'm like, my God, that's great.
Yeah. So Toto was one of them. Yes.
No, I wasn't going to go with Toto. One thing in particular was When I Need You, Leo Sayer. That used to be an instant, turn that off. Like I wanted Led Zeppelin or The Who or whatever, like I'm 9 years old, whatever, and getting picked up from Little League, and that's like, turn that off. I just thought it was a sappy 6/8 romantic wussy ballad. And then there was talks about people talking about how great that song was. I'm like, geez, I didn't know that was Jeff. And then I went and listened to it, and it was like the jaw just went like, gong. Like the feel on that's just friggin' stupid.
Yeah, his feel is there's some kind of magic always. You could go on a yacht rock playlist, and he's played on half of everything, but all those bands. No, on Lowdown, I think it's Lowdown.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fun one to listen to in stereo and take off one ear and the other, because he has two hi-hat patterns going, one in each ear. He played it twice in the studio. I mean, probably more than twice.
He was pissed about that.
Oh, really?
He didn't want the 16th notes. He'd recorded it one way, and the producer wanted it, and like he was like reluctantly did
Wow.
the double tracking on it. If I remember that right from the Robbins book.
He didn't like it from an arrangement point of view. He didn't like the fact that they were going to actually run both of them at the same time because of
I think he felt that it wasn't as hip as the track that he did, and that they were trying to make it just that much more disco than what he did.
Yeah, I mean, but it worked.
Yeah, you know, it hits.
I mean, I love the feel of that, even if it's, you know, some kind of soup of multiple takes. It's
No,
because
but he had a magic thing where, you know, there's certain drummers when, you know, Gad makes me feel that way, Steve Jordan, where they could be playing the simplest groove, and I go, how are you doing that? How are you making it feel like that? And like, yes, I know, you know, everyone's got their own heartbeat, and everyone's got like I can intellectualize and understand it like that, but still, like, okay, now sit down and make it feel like that. You're like, how are they doing that? That's the thing that I'm trying to really zero in now, and not like, you know, chops or trying to play, you know, difficult polyrhythms that, you know, very few will understand or enjoy. I want to be able to make something feel as great as I can make it feel, and that's something that I always tried to do, like growing up as a kid, but I was caught up in the whole, I love chops, I love playing, and almost to my detriment, I gained a lot of facility, a lot of understanding to play a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now I just want to make it feel great.
yeah.
And I love it when someone comes to me for a session, you know, and it's a ballad or something with brushes. I'm like, oh, thank God, thank you. They always come to me with like, let's get Todd on the, oh man, just boom, God, it's my favorite thing in the world to do.
Yeah.
Quite honestly.
Yeah. So who would you love to have a collaboration with out there on planet Earth that you haven't?
Anybody that I haven't yet, you know, yeah, because
Person, there must be somebody out there you're like, I'd love to do a track with blank.
oh, it's like, oh, sure, you know, Peter Gabriel, Sting, Paul McCartney, you know what I mean? Like, you can Jeff Beck, you can go down the line of all the greats, but I'm often surprised by a random phone call from someone or hey, are you available? And it's something I don't know. Oh, I started to say, I did this record 2 years ago for this guy in Germany. It's called Finally George, because he has been a music composer for jingles and film and corporate events and corporate film, stuff like that. But this is the first time that he's been able to do his own music without someone standing over his shoulder telling him yes or no or what to do. And you know, very often I'll get sent stuff and I'll play something and my wife will kind of go, you can't put your name on that. Or in this case, who is this? And just 3 great progressive rock songs. Like if you dig like the David Gilmour side of Pink Floyd or the mellower side of Porcupine Tree, little bits of Genesis of Billy Joel and Bowie, Alan Parsons.
Genesis and Billy Joel together.
Right?
Yeah.
There are all these little bits. So I did this record and I treated it like it was my own record. And so I just finished his second one just last week. And he's become a friend in Germany. I've done both his records, and it's like with music that good, all I can do is not screw it up. You know, so you know, I'd love to play with more people like that. So someone that I've never heard of that comes out of the blue and becomes part of my life. That's the amazing thing about this. I could pontificate of like, gee, it'd be great to work with Sting, but then there's something like that comes and it makes me almost weep going, this is why I want to be a musician.
You would sound great with Sting though. And there are other saying the same thing, by the way.
Thank you.
And in Ringo,
that would be fun.
and in Ringo's All-Star Band. Have you met Ringo?
Twice, yes. Yes, twice.
Sorry, what's that German record called?
Finally, George, Life is a Killer. That's the one that came out in 2018. And whatever his second one I just finished, that should hopefully be out sometime later in the year.
Okay.
But it's on, you know, it's on Amazon, Spotify, whatever, however you listen to your music. Yep. It's there. It's really, really an amazing record.
Okay. Okay. What's the hardest Styx song? That's a question I've got several times, so I'm going to throw it at you. What's Styx song that makes you a little nervous when you're about to play it live?
Well, I never get nervous, but I always hope that I have gas in the tank for Renegade at the end, because we end the show with that. Fooling Yourself is deceptively hard. It seems kind of like a happy song, but there's a lot going on up here, because it's 12/8 to 4/4 to 7/4, and then kind of
that's Prague.
But it's got the Peter Gabriel Salisbury Hill 7/4, where you don't realize it's in 7/4 unless you go, hey, wait a second,
because it's got a groove.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say those. Sometimes Miss America would kick my ass a little bit, just because it's like, you know, it's like this big bonehead straight ahead rocker, and depending on where that is in the set, or if it's 100 degrees and 100% humidity outside when we're doing the show, that can wreck me a little bit sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hey, I want to ask you, if I could, because I only got to meet Neil Peart once, and I had a beautiful experience with him, and it's very cool that you know, obviously it was in a film, but you obviously connected with him enough to have a friendship. And you know, I'm curious if anything you'd like to share about your experience with him.
I mean, he was look, I considered him more like a mentor. That, you know, he was someone I always looked up to, who would you know, send me funny notes sometimes. We exchanged books. You know, he was gonna maybe teach me to ride a motorcycle, which never happened. We had some plans, amazing plans, that he wanted me to air drum with the I forget what it's called, the hockey theme, the Canada hockey theme, or Canada Day.
Hockey night in Canada.
Hockey night, yeah. So he has this big thing that he would do, and he wanted me to air drum along with it. And but you know, I think we connected. We first met on the set of Adventures of Power. I'd never spoken to him. I sent this letter to his management saying that I wanted him to be in this crazy independent movie about air drumming, and everyone said, "Oh, he's a recluse. You know, he just went through all this crazy stuff. He doesn't do public stuff. He doesn't appear on camera." And then word came through that he wanted to do it, and so I was totally flattered and intimidated, and then he actually couldn't make it to set the day we shot his scene at the end of the movie, when he's at the, anyway, for anyone who's seen it, there's a big competition, he shows up. So he wasn't there when we shot the competition, so we built a special day where we like went to a studio and put a bunch of people to make the crowd so he could do his scene. And I thought, oh, this is so rinky-dink, you know, it just, like, it looked so silly, you know, because when you're shooting a crowd scene in like a room and you're faking it, and the fact that it was so rinky-dink, I think, really charmed him. And so he immediately kind of warmed to the film and to us when he realized we were, you know, scrappy independent filmmakers. And he told me, we had a burrito back, you know, when we were waiting to shoot, and he said, you know, this reminds me of, you know, when I was starting out as a musician, and it's so great. He kept saying, it's, you know, it's an honor to be working on something like this. And then when the movie, you know, we finished the movie, went to Sundance, and got kind of ignored / attacked at Sundance. It was a kind of like really open-hearted comedy that at the time, I think, people didn't want. They wanted something really cynical and mean, and so it was not well received, actually. And he immediately contacted me and said, don't believe anything anyone says about you, good or bad. Because if you believe the good ones, you're going to believe the bad ones, so just ignore it. And then he did these, he did an interview with me at Drum Channel, and they did this drum off where he played Tom Sawyer, and I air drum right next to him while he's playing it. And I mean, it's like the lifelong dream of like millions of air drummers around the world. But his generosity, I think, he had this generosity mixed with obviously like a heavy brain. Like he was super intellectual, a big reader, big thinker. I actually challenged him a little bit about the objectivism, that was so influential to his early lyrics. I said, what's your feeling about, Ayn Rand now? And he kind of gave me a funny look, like that he was over it, I think he became a bit more open to spiritual ideas and open to certainly ideas about did I get cut off there for a second?
No, yeah, you just froze for just a second.
Yeah, he became more intrigued by stuff of the spirit and stuff of, Mother Earth, which you can hear in some of the later Rush albums and the lyrics. And so we connected on that, and but mainly he was someone who made me feel, I think made everyone who met him feel welcome and protected and warm. For someone who was known as being a recluse or distant, you can never get to him. He was extremely warm, but he just, he didn't like dealing with like massive people coming at him at once. So like, I got to get backstage passes to Rush shows, and but he never showed up backstage. He was out. He would finish the show and go
right
home.
on the bus. Boom.
Yeah, he wanted to be with his his wife, and this, I mean, I have his book, he sent me his books whenever they came out, and it's just relentless creativity. I don't know. It's, it's very hard to have here.
It's from where I am, I know so many people that were in that circle or that orbit. Our guitar tech of 20 years who died about 6 months before Neil did, Jimmy Johnson, was Neil's boyhood friend, and he was part of the deal. When Neil got the Rush gig, Jimmy comes with. So Jimmy was with him all the way. Lawrence Gowan, when he was Gowan in the 80s, he was Ray Daniels was the manager. Libby Gray, our lighting designer, her husband is Brent Carpenter, has been doing monitors for Rush for the last 10 years. So through like Lawrence, like, I know all these people, and Howard Ungerleider, the lighting director, blah, 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 blah. And everything I've ever heard about any of those guys is that they're just exemplary human beings. It's a wonderful organization of wonderful human beings. Never heard one, hey, this one time, never heard one negative story or anything, like just exemplary human beings.
Yeah, Rush and Anthem, they didn't tolerate assholes. I don't think they wouldn't have let anyone who was a douchebag into their world. And I think they had a sense for it too, and that's where I was sort of flattered that they sort of, the door opened for me to hang out a little bit, and it was special, and you felt that from everyone there. There was a kind of like a sense of like everyone respected everyone else, and was kind. It wasn't like rock and roll BS ever.
Right.
Ever.
Right. When my one meeting with him revolves around the Hockey Night theme. I'd flown to Los Angeles to record with Brian Wilson, and he was doing his Gershwin record. Brian Wilson reimagines Gershwin.
Every time you say that, every time you say, "Oh, and I went to record with Brian Wilson," it's just sorry, it's just amazing.
I'm not.
Okay.
Did I mention I was in Saint Tropez? And no.
Yes.
So I fly out there, and I'm staying at the Sportsman's Lodge in Studio City, right? And I get an email from Jimmy Johnson, our guitar tech, and said, "Hey, look what Neil sent me." And it's a picture of the hockey drum set, right, with all the the white with the ice blue hardware and every emblem of all the NHL teams on all the drums. So I'm like, wow, this it's cool. Went to bed, woke up, went into the studio. Actually, this was the second day because my stuff was already set up. It was the second day I walked in and I see Chris Danke from Sabian, the Sabian artist rep, in the foyer at Ocean Way. I'm like, Chris, what are you doing here? He goes, Todd, I saw Brian's name on the door. I was wondering if you were going to be here. I'm like, what are you doing here? Neil's recording the Hockey Night theme in the next studio over. He goes, now's a good time to say hi. I'm like, let me drop off my stuff. And I was starving. So I dropped off my stuff and I went and grabbed a bagel from the kitchenette, took a bite. And then all of a sudden, Chris pulls me in, and in his studio, there was the kit, the friggin' Stanley Cup trophy, an 18-piece big band, all the techs, and a film crew filming this thing. And Chris introduces me, and just warm handshake and a smile, because we both know we have so many mutual people in our lives. And he was just warm, engaging, lovely. He was asking me all the questions. He wanted to know about the Brian Wilson record and what's it like working with Brian, and tell me some Brian stuff. And I'm looking around and I basically see that there's 27 people in this room, all waiting for him to be done talking to me so they could get to work. But Neil seems to be quite happy to be chatting. But now I'm starting to feel a little bit like I should probably let you get back to work here. So Chris says, oh, we got to get a picture. So we snapped a couple pictures of Neil and I in the Stanley Cup, and I'm holding that friggin' bagel with a big crescent bite out of it. And that was my one meeting. I'm like, hey, I'll let you get to work, and I got work to do too. So it was great. And I'd always hoped that there'd be some other meeting with him, but it was not meant to be. But I'm very happy that I'm privileged and grateful and thankful that I had one, and that it was so lovely, that it's a warm fuzzy every time I think of it.
Did you keep the bagel?
No, I ate the bagel. I was hungry.
I'm gonna say you could bronze the bagel.
bronze bagels.
So maybe we'll wrap up. I don't. Maybe I'll look at whatever the next question is. We'll do one question. Now everyone's going to type at once, and someone's going to feel cheated. But people are just saying thank you. So bronze the bagel. Okay, I think maybe we'll wrap up. So anyone who wants to watch Adventures of Power, it is on Amazon Prime all the time. And if you want to buy Adventures of Power on Vimeo, all of the money that we make on Vimeo goes to support MCKEAN, which has a COVID special program to support musicians in need, and for gigging musicians and support crews. It's a really great charity. Or you can go to MCKEAN and just donate. But if you watch Adventures of Power, either on Amazon for free, we get paid a couple pennies every time someone watches it. So we send it to MCKEAN. Vimeo, we get a little bit more. We send it to MCKEAN. On Vimeo, you get all the bonuses, including my interviews with Neil Peart and stuff like that. Adventures of Power that's the movie. Airdrummer.com has a video. Actually, if you go to adventuresofpower.com/Styx, you can see me punking Todd the day that that video is on your page on the airdrummer.com website. So apologies.
2006.
I can't. 2006. That's crazy. It's crazy.
I can hardly remember 2006.
I can't. I mean, I remember that day, but I wouldn't have thought it was that long ago. But time flies. As the movie starts with a line. I was thinking when you're talking about every drummer has their own heartbeat, the first line of the movie is, the first sound we hear is the beat of our mama's heart. And so maybe every drummer is different because in the womb, every drummer has heard a different kind of heartbeat. So, and your mother was an actor,
actress, part-time singer, and could play the piano.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how my parents met. So my father was playing a show and she was in it.
Okay. So you heard the heartbeat of an artist when you were in the womb, and you were probably air drumming along.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly didn't seem to hurt.
Yeah, because you were playing too. Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, Todd. It's a real honor to hang out with you.
Thanks, man. It was a pleasure. We were able to do this.
Yeah, and thank you to Modern Drummer for hosting this. We were going to be on all the channels at once, and we will restream this to all the channels later. We had a power outage at our streamer's place, but thank you so much. And anyone who wants to watch Adventures of Power right now with me online, if you go to airdrummer.com and then click the show link in the middle where Todd's name is, you'll go to a watch party on Amazon, and I'll click start at the same time in like 5 minutes, and then if anyone wants to say anything to me during the movie, you can say it there. But if you watch it another time, feel free to contact me at ARI GOLD. That's where I am on Instagram. And remember, it all supports MCKEAN. That's my spiel. I said my spiel part. Todd, anything else you want to say about your life or advice?
Yeah, I like stay safe, stay smart, do the right things, everybody, and
keep playing music.
If we can all do that, we can get back to the live music experience. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm gonna remember when I click the button to stop to hit save, so we can rebroadcast this. We've got a lot of compliments on the interview, so I don't want to lose it. I gotta remember. I've done this before where I'm like,
so I won't say anything. I won't distract you.
It's okay. I'm gonna say goodbye. I'm gonna press the button. I'm gonna hit save. Hit save. Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you, Todd. Bye.
Thanks, man.
I know it's too late for me to learn to play drums. I can still rock.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to witness the new breed of warrior.
Her legs, so white.
Like white tiger.
We felt something today. We need you.
Tonight, we are air drummers. Every one of us.